Just like Jack Daniel's Blackberry, Jim Beam Pineapple isn't technically a whiskey. It's a liqueur made with whiskey. Most whiskeys are 80 proof and up. This is only 70 proof. It's great in cocktails, even if it isn't straight whiskey. Because it's sweet and lower proof, we'll use Jim Beam Pineapple as the modifying liqueur, and Jim Beam Rye as the main spirit in these 3 cocktails. Any rye whiskey you have will work. If you try another brand, let me know how it works out by leaving a comment below. What's the difference between rye and bourbon? Rye has at least 51% rye in the mash, while bourbon has at least 51% corn. Bourbon has a lot of requirements, like needing to be aged in new charred American oak. Rye doesn't have as many guidelines to follow. Rye tends to have a spicier, more peppery flavor, while bourbon leans sweeter. Let's talk about Jim Beam Rye. The mash bill is undisclosed. We just know it's legally a rye, so 51% or more rye, and the rest is corn and malted barley. There's no age statement. So let's try it. And this is 80 proof. Most of the ryes I drink are a little higher proof, and most of them are more than 18 bucks. So I'm not going to be too hard on this one because I thought the price was awesome, and you can get it in pretty much any liquor store. So we'll try a little bit of it. On the nose, it does have some of the kind of peppery and citrus notes you typically find in a rye. It's a lot thinner than what I'm used to. It's lower proof. It's not like a super complex rye. It's not super spicy. It doesn't have that bite that I really love in some of my favorite 95% ryes. So I would guess that this is more of like a lower rye, like a 51, 53%, something like that. Which makes sense because Jim Beam is kind of known more for bourbon, so maybe they wanted to make a more bourbon drinkers friendly rye. It doesn't taste bad. It's just not super interesting. I probably wouldn't just sit and sip on this neat, but I think it would be great mixed with root beer. It's probably going to be great in these cocktails I'm going to make. While we're taste testing, we'll also taste the Jim Beam Pineapple, and gotta finish this. Yeah, not bad at all. And anyway, like I said, I think of this as a liqueur. They even label it as a liqueur, so good on them for that. It says it's sweet and tropical, so it's definitely sweet. I've had it before, and it smells kind of like a pineapple candy. It's almost more sugary than pineapple. It's just kind of got an artificial pineapple smell. I mean, I don't know what more you would expect from it. And it's also cheap. It's about 20 bucks a bottle. And yeah, when I try it, it's just like pineapple hard candy. Like this, it doesn't taste bad. I think it's going to be fun to play with, fun to use as a modifying liqueur. I find it hilarious that some people call it whiskey. Jim Beam doesn't even call it that. So our first drink is a pineapple Rye Tai. I'm going to start with a disclaimer on this one. Tiki purist, I love you. You keep Tiki history alive, and you stop people from making hot pink Mai Tais, so try not to hate on me too much for this drink. That being said, I have plenty of videos on classic Mai Tais with rum, which I'll link to below. This is an experiment. Stick around until the end of the video to see if it actually tastes good. So for this one, instead of the typical blend of Jamaican and Martinique rums or blends of 4 rums that a lot of you guys do, I'm just going to do 2 ounces of the Jim Beam Rye, and then I'm going to do an ounce of the Jim Beam Pineapple. I'm kind of using it in place of the orange liqueur and a little bit of the syrup too. So 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of the Jim Beam Pineapple. Then we'll do 3/4 of an ounce of freshly squeezed lime juice, and save that spent lime shell. You're going to need it for the garnish. And then one of the most important ingredients in a Mai Tai is the orgeat. I use the Lieber and Company. I haven't really found one I like better than this. I'm going to use half an ounce of it. And I always like to use the Elemacule Tiki bitters in my Mai Tais. Getting kind of low on them. Put a couple droppers in. I'm going to serve this one in my newest Mai Tai glass that I just picked up at Porco Lounge and Tiki Room in Cleveland. Speaking of like a legit Mai Tai with rum, that is a good place to get one. Put a little bit of ice in our Mai Tai glass. And we're going to put a little ice in our shaker. So when I do Mai Tais, I shake them with the pebble ice and serve them over pebble ice. Just go ahead and open pour that. And while this is not a traditional Mai Tai, I'm going to garnish it the traditional way with a spent lime shell and a mint sprig. That is an island, that is a palm tree, and that is a Surfside Sip straw. Stick around to the end to see how the Rye Tai taste. Next up, we have a pineapple old fashioned. This is going to use the Jim Beam pineapple as the sweetener, so no simple syrup is needed since the Jim Beam pineapple is so sweet on its own. And for the base spirit, I kind of wish Jim Beam had a higher proof rye. If they do, I haven't seen it or heard about it, so let me know in the comments below if that exists. So we're going to build this one in our mixing glass and then serve it in this very cool Ben shot glass with a bullet in it. So I'm going to do 2 ounces of the Jim Beam Rye. And I'm going to do half an ounce of the Jim Beam pineapple. Hopefully that should be enough sweetener. We'll see. This is the first time I've ever tried this, so half an ounce of that. And I thought that using chili lime bitters instead of Angostura bitters would be fun in this one. I just thought that chili lime would go really well with pineapple. It's almost like some kind of tropical old-fashioned, so a few droppers of those. And when I do stirred cocktails, I just usually stir them with these like 1-inch ice cubes. That always works out pretty well. I'm going to drink this so I can place this cool skull into my Ben shot glass. And we're going to just give this a stir until we see a nice frost on our glass. That's a sign that it's chilled and diluted the proper amount. Usually for old fashions, I drop a couple cherries and a little orange peel in there, but I'm going to use a lime twist this time. Nice and simple. Kind of signals that it has the chili lime bitters in it. So there is our pineapple rye old fashioned. For our final cocktail, we're doing another tiki riff. The original Painkiller was made with Pusser's Navy rum, sometimes up to 4 ounces of it. So I'm going to do a pineapple rye Painkiller with 2 ounces each of Jim Beam rye and Jim Beam pineapple. By the way, if you want to see a traditional Painkiller with Pusser's rum, I have a video on that, which I will link to below. So this is going to be a pretty alcohol heavy one. First of all, because the original is, and second of all, because I'm going to be putting it in a very large tiki mug. So I'm going to do 2 ounces each of the Jim Beam rye and the Jim Beam pineapple. The traditional Painkiller recipe calls for a full 4 ounces of pineapple juice plus orange juice. And I think that's kind of a lot. So I'm going to do maybe 3 ounces of the pineapple. There's 2 and 3. I'm going to do an ounce of orange juice and an ounce of cream of coconut. And this doesn't have to be exact. Some of it might get kind of stuck because it's so thick, but just somewhere in the neighborhood of an ounce. There's a little extra to make up for what got stuck. I've had people bitch about that before. So I'm going to do this just like I did the Mai Tai. I'm going to open pour it and include the pebble ice. And I'm going to really load up this mug with the pebble ice because it's pretty big. And that actually filled it up perfectly. And I have a cute little shorter version of the Surfside Sip straw. I did a little orange wheel with a cherry in it. With these tiki drinks, I kind of like to go wild with the garnishes, and even a little piece of lime I thought would look good on it. And I'm also going to grate a little fresh nutmeg on the top. Whoa. There's our pineapple rye painkiller. Alright, so now it's time to try all three of the drinks and see how they came out. So first we have our pineapple Rye Tai that instead of rum has Beam Rye and Beam pineapple. Looks like a Mai Tai. Sort of tastes like a Mai Tai. It's a little sweeter. This stuff is super sweet. It tastes good. I don't know if it's screaming Mai Tai, and this is when I wish that this was a spicier rye because it's getting lost. It's more of a sweet drink. But I think most people would like this. It's not super exciting to me, but it's also not an abomination. I would suggest using a higher proof, higher rye. And maybe the orange liqueur instead of this. I think that it's a little bit too sweet. Alright, so the next one is our pineapple rye old fashioned. And remember, we didn't use any simple syrup in this. We used the pineapple Jim Beam as the sweetener. That is very drinkable. I like that better than the Mai Tai. I'm shocked because I thought using an 80 proof whiskey wouldn't work out as well in an old fashioned. But I think that the pineapple is so thick and syrupy, the amount of that I added kind of gives it a little more body. And I also use the chili lime bitters, which make it a little more different and interesting than your typical old fashioned. So far, the pineapple rye old fashioned is the winner. Third, we have the pineapple rye painkiller, which, okay, pussers, don't sue me because this doesn't even have rum in it. It's definitely the coolest looking one. When it was overflowing, I tasted it and I was like a little bit disappointed already. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's way too sweet. It's boring. I can't taste the alcohol in it. I never really liked the painkiller as much as other tiki drinks because it's not acidic enough for me. There's no lime juice. I feel like orange juice in drinks is just never that good. So honestly, I will probably like not be making this again, and I may be pouring it down the drain. You definitely need something stronger to stand up to all the juice. Jim Beam Pineapple Painkiller, thumbs down. This is definitely the winner, so I guess I would say the best use for this stuff is a sweetener in an old fashioned. So are you going to try any of these? Tell me your pick below. Thanks for watching, and cheers.